climbing above Florida for the 19th time. A beautiful view of the Falcon 9 rocket after much delay tonight, finding some clear skies to lift off above Florida. You can see here in the wide view, climbing between the clouds from the vantage point of the press site. A little bit tricky to track through the clouds, but our Pete Carson's has it back here. Some great track views on the ground. Now a little over a minute into flight. Call the Falcon 9 is supersonic. It's now traveling faster than the speed of sound. At this point, they'll be throttling down the engines. As there we go, the vehicles pass through max Q, the point of greatest aerodynamic pressure on the vehicle. Coming up on 2 minutes to flight. That call for MVAC chill. They are thermally conditioning the Merlin vacuum engine before it ignites. Coming up in rapid succession are a number of events. At T plus 2 minutes and 26 seconds, we'll have first stage main engine cutoff, or MECO. That'll be followed a few seconds later by stage separation. Then the Merlin vacuum engine will ignite. That'll be capped off at just a little over 3 minutes to flight with a fairing deployment. Getting some great color in these images from Pete Carson's tracking camera. And there we have MECO. Stage separation. And the ignition of the Merlin vacuum engine. And there you see those events and callouts from SpaceX on the slight delay from their live feed here, as we're continuing to see in our tracking camera Falcon 9 second stage in the glow of the Merlin vacuum engine. A little bit of a jellyfish effect that we're seeing here tonight. You see the payload fairings now deploying from the second stage, glinting against the glow of that Merlin vacuum engine.
Fairing separation confirmed.
And there you see those fairings falling away in the SpaceX feed. The Starlink satellites now exposed to the vacuum of space for the first time on this flight. Now a little over 3.5 minutes into this mission. Next milestone coming up is going to be just a little after 6 minutes of flight, where the Falcon 9 first stage entry burn begins. That burn lasting about 24 seconds. Still getting some great tracking views of the Falcon 9 second stage engine from Pete Carson's. Now a little over 4 minutes to flight. coming up on 4.5 minutes. So far, a nominal flight for both stages of the Falcon 9 rocket. Second stage, Merlin vacuum engine continues a good burn. The Falcon 9 first stage continues to make its way towards the drone ship. Just read the instructions. The first stage has reached its apogee, tapping out at about 113 kilometers in altitude, now slowly starting to make its descent down towards the drone ship. Speedometer continuing to ratchet up, though, once the entry burn starts. We'll see the speedometer rapidly plummet as the vehicle essentially slams on the brakes, prepares to make its way down toward the drone ship. Now about 5.5 minutes into flight, just a little over 30 seconds away from that first stage entry burn beginning. Seeing some views on the right-hand side of your screen, the Falcon 9 first stage in that top box. Of course, the Merlin vacuum engine from the onboard camera views from SpaceX on the bottom right-hand corner. The big box in the center of your screen, those are tracking views from our friend Pete Karstens, Max Key Productions. Coming up on 6 minutes into flight, we're about to see the start of that entry burn. The entry burn is now underway in real time. Should see
Stage
it
1
begin
FTS is saved.
on the SpaceX
Stage
feed
1 entry
momentarily.
burn startup.
And there you see that burn beginning.
Stage
Stage 1
2
entry burn shutdown.
Stage 2 FTS is saved.
Some good call-outs from SpaceX coming into the 7th minute of this flight. In just over a minute from now, in real time, is when the first stage landing burn will begin. The time you're looking for on the SpaceX feed, since we won't be able to see it from our tracking cameras here on the ground, will be about T plus 8 minutes and 4 seconds, about a minute from now.
Stage 1 transonic.
That call the Falcon 9 first stage now traveling below the speed of sound. So we're coming up on the 8th minute in flight. On the SpaceX feed, we're now less than 15 seconds away from the start of that landing burn.
Stage 1 landing burn.
We should see the drone ship coming up into view beneath the flame of the Falcon 9 first stage, as well as on drone ship views there. Now on the right-hand side of your screen.
Stage 1 landing leg deploy.
And joining
Stage 1 landing confirmed.
boosters 1061 and 1062, B1060 now launched, landed for a 19th time. We now have a three-way tie for flight leader.
Good orbit insertion.
And those good call outs from SpaceX, meaning that the Falcon 9 second stage has gone into its parking orbit, where it will coast for the next little while here until about T plus 54 minutes and 9 seconds when the second stage who contributed to make this live launch coverage possible. We weren't able to get to prior to the launch, but definitely don't want to pass over all the great support. Thanks to Case at Carts for $1 super chat. Really appreciate that, Case. Gregory Carlson with a $5 super chat. Thank you so much, Gregory, for your support this evening. Actually, I think I may have scrolled up a little farther than I intended here. Let me make sure I'm at the right spot here. Okay. Laura with a $10 super chat. Thank you so much, Laura. Who says, Spaceflight now rocks. Thanks for the best coverage and for making it fun to watch. Well, you're very welcome. And thank you so much for supporting this coverage and helping to make it possible. 12Z Train with a $10 super chat. Thank you so much, 12Z. Appreciate the support this evening. Peter Gosling with another $100 super chat. Thank you, Peter, for being so generous this evening. Really appreciate that level of generosity. Heather with a $20 super chat. Really appreciate that as well. Heather, thank you so much. CJ matched now with another $20. Thank you, CJ. Really appreciate your support this evening. CJ says, my fiance Lauren and I are in bed in Vero Beach. We're about to walk down to the beach to watch. So this is coming in just before liftoff. So excited to watch our first Falcon 9, which is fabulous. Hopefully the views from Vero Beach were such that you were able to see the launch tonight. You know, the clouds made it a little tricky, so fingers crossed for you. I am Lita with a $5 super chat, one of our wonderful channel members. Lita says, you guys are the best. Greatly appreciate all the work you put in to bring us this awesome place to share launches together. Thanks, Spaceflight Now. Thanks, Lita. Always good to have you. Gregory Carlson with another $5 super chat. Thank you so much, Gregory. Really appreciate the support. Our thanks to our newest channel member, Libby Ling, for joining us at the mission specialist level. Thank you so much, Libby. He's at Cars, another one of our great channel members, the $2 super chat right before a liftoff, saying, here we go. Counting at 4, 3, 2, 1, launch to SpaceX. Yes, indeed. Fettuccine. Again, making me hungry, Fettuccine. But appreciate the $2 super chat saying, I see it in person, the whole thing, which is always wonderful. Getting confirmation that folks that are able to see the launch or that are in proximity to the launch are able to actually see it. And a very generous $20 super chat from channel member Charles Boyer. Thank you so much, Charles. I appreciate your continued support with channel membership. This is a marker of where we are with the mission. Again, just to note, we're T plus 14 minutes, 42 seconds and counting. At this point in the mission, the Falcon 9 second stage is in that parking orbit. It will remain into this coast phase until T plus 54 minutes and 9 seconds. After that, there will be a 1 second burn of the Falcon 9 second stage. And that'll set up the Starlink satellites to deploy at T plus 1 hour, 5 minutes, and 18 seconds. Because as we saw SpaceX cut the feed, we won't see the Starlink satellites deploy, but this is what that process looks like. As you can see, the release of this Starlink stack. I believe this was a stack of 22 Starlinks at this time. Back on October 21st of last year. You can see the second stage of the vehicle and the reflection of that stack. As they slowly drift away, they will, in time, separate away from each other, deploy their solar panels, and move into their correct orbital position. They will continue to operate. SpaceX to date has launched more than 6,000 of these Starlink satellites. It's been launching these V2 minis for some time now. I believe we're well in excess of 60 missions. Launching the V2 minis. This so far has been the 18th dedicated launch of Starlink satellites this year. Coming into this launch, there were more than 5,600 Starlink satellites that are still on orbit coming into this opportunity. As you can see, the transporter erector coming up into the upright position here at pad 39A. Bringing the TE back up vertical has been part of SpaceX's procedure in turning around its launch pads, both here at 39A and 39, or excuse me, in pad 40 over at Cape Canaveral Space Force Station in a more rapid fashion as they're working to make space flight more airport-like. Certainly a high ambition of their Starship program. Being able to do much more rapid reuse than even the Falcon 9 rocket. I did mention Starship, of course. Once Starship becomes a fully operational vehicle, and by that I mean being able to continuously and reliably deploy payloads into orbit, SpaceX will start launching its much larger, full-size, what were initially going to be the Starlink version 2 satellites, although founder Elon Musk has suggested that given that these V2 minis have been flying for a while, they may call the larger Starlinks version 3s. We'll have to wait and see once they're actually being deployed what they end up calling them once they're in that mode of operation. With the addition of 23 more Starlink V2 minis on their way to orbit, let's go ahead and talk about where this mission landed in the overall landscape for SpaceX tonight. This was the 19th flight, as mentioned, of Falcon 9 booster 1060, making it in a three-way tie for flight leader along with 1061 and 1062. This was the 313th Falcon 9 launch to date, the 28th Falcon 9 launch of 2024. This was the 257th Falcon booster reflight, or the launch of a booster that has flown at least once. This was SpaceX's 29th launch of 2024, including, of course, the third integrated flight test of the Starship rocket from Boca Chica area in southern Texas. This was SpaceX's 202nd orbital launch in the last 365 days. Its 76th orbital launch from Pad 39A. The 171st overall orbital launch from this pad. SpaceX is slowly but surely creeping up on the total number of shuttle launches that lifted off from this pad. There were 82 space shuttle flights from 39A. SpaceX now just within 4, coming in striking distance of that record. Taking a look at our bar graph now that we've got another Falcon flight to add. We're now at 28 Falcon launches. Of course, looking towards the first Falcon Heavy launch no earlier than May to send up the NOAA NASA satellite GOES-U. Moving on to some recovery stats. This was the 75th landing of a booster on the drone ship. Just read the instructions. This was the 222nd SpaceX drone ship landing to date, and the 287th overall SpaceX booster landing, getting close to 300 booster landings. Finally, moving out to some industry stats as we're coming up on 22 minutes into this mission. This was the 19th orbital launch from Florida so far this year, the 30th orbital launch from U.S. soil, the 33rd orbital launch from a U.S. rocket company, including, of course, the Rocket Lab missions from down in New Zealand. And this was the 57th orbital launch around the globe. There have been 2 orbital launch failures. Looking at the global map in a pie chart, you can see SpaceX continues to drive the US-led portion of this, with China having 13 launches so far in the year. Russia, now with the launch of its Soyuz MS-25 mission earlier today, comes in the 3rd spot, followed by Japan with 3, and Iran and India tied at 2 orbital launches each. You can see the transporter erector now fully upright again here at the pad. Want to thank a few more folks for their support this evening before we go ahead and close things out. Thanks to Daniel Newman for a $5 super chat. Thank you, Daniel. One of our wonderful moderators, Astro Joe, also a channel member, $5 super chat. Astro Joe says, really trying my linguistic skills here at the end of a very long launch broadcast, Astro Joe. But I'm not one to shy away from a challenge. Former actor. Betty bought a bit of butter, but, she said, this butter's bitter. If I put it in my batter, it will make my batter bitter. So she bought better butter. Thank you, Astro Joe. Keep me on my toes. Finally, Ben Hamilton with the $20 super chat. Thank you so much, Ben, for supporting us at that level. Ben says, my 10-year-old kiddo and I were watching live from Cocoa Beach, which is always fabulous to hear. Love seeing kids get inspired by rocketry in real time. We're so grateful for your super detailed and fascinating commentary. Well, thank you so much for those kind words, Ben, and thank you for supporting our live launch coverage and making this possible tonight. And with that, want to also go ahead and begin to close things out. Thank you to our wonderful moderators for helping us out in the live chat. Thanks to Stephanie B, Astro Joe, Astro Jen. And thanks to Rusty Shackelford as well, who may have called it a night a little bit earlier, but really appreciate him being out with us as well.